Overthinking, whether it's ruminating on the past, worrying about the future, or just fixating on things that we can't do anything about, we're all guilty of overthinking at times. It can be a huge cause of anxiety and emotional overwhelm. But it occurred to me recently that a lot of the things we do in these instances seem to suggest that a part of our mind believes it has actual magical powers.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm Tim Box, and this is Overthinking, 4 ways that your mind thinks you have magic powers. So welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time, I'm Tim Box, I'm a mind coach, and for the last 12 years or so, I've been working with people to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular, helping people to get control of anxiety. Before we do anything, please hit that thumbs up button as it helps the channel grow. So let's get started. Here are the different ways your mind has confused you for an actual wizard and tries to exert magical powers. Of all the things we might find ourselves ruminating over, perhaps the most common topic is things that went wrong in the past. This could be beating ourselves up for a mistake we made or replaying a traumatic life experience. Dwelling on the past often comes with an unhealthy dose of guilt and regret and is top of the list of things we might want to change, but can of course do absolutely nothing about. So is our mind labouring under the misapprehension that we have a time machine parked in the garage? Is it genuinely making plans to rewrite history and reset our timeline? Of course not. In truth, we ruminate over past experiences because our mind is attempting to learn from them. When things go wrong, it's important for our continued emotional well-being to be able to understand why certain things happened so we can avoid them happening again in the future and do things differently should something similar arise. The problem here is that we very probably did nothing wrong in the first place and are in fact revisiting not just past events, but a past version of ourselves that was still learning. Even the mistakes we might have made were made in the belief that they were the right course of action at the time. Whilst we never stop learning, we certainly won't learn anything new from revisiting old events. Most likely we learned what we needed to learn in the moment, and any guilt or regret we feel isn't actually designed to torture us. It's designed to hammer home that learning so we can respond differently in the future. The fact that we feel bad about those old memories means we've probably learnt whatever lessons needed to be learned, and we've grown to become a slightly different person now. If you find yourself ruminating over past events, don't get frustrated with that part of you for revisiting things you can do nothing about. That's not the purpose of those thoughts. Instead, remind that part that those lessons have been learnt, and we can now shift our focus back on the things we can influence. Those present day concerns as a wiser, more knowledgeable and more resourceful version of ourselves. How many times do you find yourself trying to predict the future? Probably more often than you realise. One of the main causes of overthinking is trying to prepare for potential disasters and catastrophes that might or might not occur in the near future. We might even have the belief that if we prepare for the worst, then that makes it less likely to happen. The simple fact here is that no matter how much time and energy you've put into the what ifs, you've never 100% correctly predicted what's going to happen the next day. We don't get to know these things because there are way too many variables involved. There's always been things about every day we have lived that we've had to adapt to without any forewarning or opportunity for preparation. That's because we can't control what other people think, say or do, and we don't get to decide what challenges life throws at us from moment to moment. What this means is that we've got really good at dealing with the unexpected. We've had a lot of practice at it. In turn, that of course means that we already know the answer to the question, what if the worst happens? The answer is, we will deal with it in some way and get the other side of it, in the same way that we have in some capacity got the other side of every other challenge life has thrown our way. Not only that, but we will come out the other side older, wiser, and if we pay attention, perhaps a little bit more confident about our ability to cope. Every day, most of us will engage in the activity of attempting to read other people's minds. It happens every time we meet someone. In some way, we try to read their mind and work out what version of us would be most appealing to them. And that's us simply doing that thing that humans have been doing ever since we started to arrange ourselves in tribes. We seek to connect with others to increase our numbers and strengthen our chances of survival. Now, whilst making sure the person in front of us approves of us isn't quite as life or death an issue as it used to be, it still feels important to us to to be liked, and that's okay. The problem comes when we then spend time and energy overthinking, trying to work out exactly what other people think of us. We've all probably found ourselves lying awake at some point in our life wondering what a certain person meant by a certain comment, or why a certain someone hasn't called, or just pondering where we stand with our friendship group and whether anybody really likes us anyway. Whilst it's an easily understandable thing to do, the danger here is that all this mind reading leads us down the path of trying to adapt and change who we are just to keep others happy. Then we end up becoming a version of ourselves that is unnatural, unsustainable, and in no way fulfilling. In truth, it's actually more important that we become comfortable with the idea of people not liking us. It's no secret that everyone on the planet is different, and as such, will like different things. This is why we can't keep everyone happy. What one person likes about us will be the exact thing that someone else hates. And bearing in mind we can't actually read minds and find out exactly what every single person on the planet would ideally want from us, where does that leave us? Well, it probably leaves us with the only workable solution. The only mind we can actually read is our own, and the only person on the planet that needs to be happy with who we are is ourselves. If we take the, let's face it, much easier, less challenging option of simply choosing to be who we want to be and who we feel we are naturally, then some will like that and some won't. But the people we end up being around will inevitably be the ones that do. And what's more, they'll probably be the people who we naturally like. It's funny how that works out. When we're with people who think the same way as us, we don't need to read minds. We only find those people by being comfortable being ourselves. One of the main topics of concern that people these days find themselves overthinking is the big picture stuff. Climate change, global politics, the pandemic. Our increased access to news about world events has many of us spending a lot of time worrying about the big stuff and wishing these concerns would go away. You remember that time when worrying about global events magically fixed all these social, economic, and environmental issues we face these days? No, me neither. Because in this week's episode of Tim Tells You Stuff You Already Knew, worrying doesn't achieve anything. But worrying is actually an interesting word. It's the word we use to describe our mind focusing on things we can do nothing about. If we could do something about it, we would. And then any thought we put into it wouldn't be referred to as worrying. It would be called solving. How often do we think we're engaged in problem solving, only to realise now we're just worrying? We're doing nothing more effective than simply wishing things would change. But if we know worrying is so futile, why do we do it? The reason is because the things we are thinking about seem important to our long-term prospects of happiness. Our mind naturally draws our focus to global issues because this is our planet, it's where we live, it matters. It's for this reason that pretty much everybody worries at times, but it's not the best strategy for our happiness. The next time we switch on the news to see what's happening on the other side of the world, it's worth remembering that we only have a limited mental capacity. By putting a large portion of our focus on things that we can't control, we leave ourselves vulnerable to becoming easily overwhelmed. This is why so many people became excessively anxious at the start of the pandemic. It wasn't just because we had global concerns land on our doorstep, it was also because a new issue was now demanding our focus, and it left our mind short-staffed to deal with our other concerns. This is the real reason why becoming overly focused on the news and current events can drain us emotionally and psychologically. We waste all our energy on things we have no control over. We then soon start to feel like everything we focus on is outside of our direct influence, and thus life itself begins to feel out of control, and that causes anxiety. If we're not careful, we end up losing control of the one thing we should always be able to exercise control over, and that's our own responses. Our awareness of global concerns and our desire for things to change won't actually influence the outcome. We can't move mountains with our minds, and we can't change the world by worrying about it. However, by focusing on our own path and our own choices, we might surprise ourselves with how much control we actually can exert over our progress in our pursuit of happiness. Even though our mind gets involved with futile pursuits at times, it's not trying to lead us down a dead end. It's just trying to solve those puzzles that we're currently struggling to be at peace with. However, there is one actual magic power we do have, or at least it certainly presents itself as magical when we tap into it, and that's our innate ability to change the way we think. We often end up in a position where we feel like we're stuck this way and that there's nothing we can do about it. However, we actually change all the time, and it's not magic, it's just our brain doing what it does. constantly rewiring and reconnecting our synaptic pathways as we learn and grow. That growth never stops because we never stop learning. As soon as we change the way we perceive the day-to-day threats, when we realize the worst case is a lot less likely than we previously thought, the consequences are a lot less dire than we previously feared, and our ability to cope is far greater than we have thus far given ourselves credit for, then our mind starts to feel a lot less under threat. We find less need to overthink, and we naturally calm the anxiety we've been feeling. The truth is, we're never irretrievably stuck in this habit of overthinking because we all possess that seemingly magical power to change. Okay, so I hope this video has been of value. If you have any questions, then put them in the comments below, or you can put them to me directly on my weekly live stream on this channel where I answer your questions about anxiety and any other aspect of mental health and emotional well-being. Be sure to tune in every Friday at 6 p.m. GMT for that. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel for weekly mind management tips and anxiety advice. But that's it for now. I'm Tim Box, Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.